How does white play the classical variation against the king's Indian? Have you ever wondered how white can effectively respond to the king's Indian defense? The classical variation is a popular choice for white, and it offers a solid plan. Let's break down how white plays this variation step by step. White starts with the move one pawn to d4. After black plays one knight to f6 and two pawns to g6, white typically continues with the knight to c3 and then the knight to f3. This development helps white control the center. The goal is to establish a strong pawn center with pawns on d4 and e4. In the classical variation, white develops the dark squared bishop to e2 and castles kingside. This setup is solid and flexible, allowing white to prepare for various strategies. After castling, white often places the queen on c2 and the rooks on d1 and e1. This positioning supports the center and prepares for potential operations on both the center and queen side. One of the key strategies for white is to maintain a broad pawn center. This helps restrict black's counterplay. White needs to be ready for black's typical pawn breaks, such as pushing the pawn to c5 or e5. White can respond by advancing the d-pawn to d5 or keeping tension in the center. The classical variation often leads to a race between white's steady expansion and black's kingside attack. White's plan usually involves expanding on the queen side, especially after the center locks up with pawns on d5 and e4. Meanwhile, black will focus on launching an attack on the king side. A notable subvariation within the classical variation is the Bayonet Attack. In this aggressive approach, white plays an early pawn to b4. This move challenges black's queenside pawn structure and supports a pawn push to c5. This strategy allows white to maintain a strong central presence while preparing for queenside activity. White's knight often stays on f3, ready to jump to g5 or e6 if black plays the pawn to f5. This increases pressure on black's kingside and can lead to tactical opportunities for white. In practical terms, the setup in the classical variation is adaptable. White aims to prevent black's typical breaks from gaining full effect through timely pawn advances and piece maneuvers. This variation is ideal for players who enjoy a balance of positional control and attacking chances. Understanding typical pawn structures and the timing of pawn breaks is essential. Careful piece placement is also vital to counter black's ambitions on the king side. By establishing a strong pawn center with d4 and e4, developing pieces naturally, and preparing for both central and queenside operations, white can effectively navigate the classical variation against the king's Indian defense.